Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report, Thursday's edition, again broadcasting from beautiful Irvine, California. Happy to have you with us today. Hey, I'd like to welcome Gary Demar back to the show. Gary, happy to have you on the show today also.
Yeah, it's been, we skipped a couple of weeks, but yeah, it's great to be back on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today, Gary. Hey, listen, there's a lot of talk about the fact they just passed that $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Okay, fine, it's done. Biden will have some elaborate signing ceremony. But the bigger bill, the Build Back Better bill, which is now at about $1.7, $1.8 trillion, that's in a lot of trouble. After we got the inflation report yesterday that showed consumer price index up 6.2%, Joe Manchin has basically said we need to put a hold on that Build Back Better bill until at least 2022. Gary, that's going to really derail and infuriate the liberals, and it's going to stall their agenda.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, it's the sad part of all this, of course, is that the Republicans are the ones that dragged the Biden bill over the line. It was the left that didn't, because they didn't get more goodies in the first bill, and then here we are again relying on a Democrat. I sure hope that the Republicans, if they come back in power in 2022, they don't blow it.
Yeah,
they need to do their job in terms of what they were sent up there to do. And I've been listening to a lot of commentators talking about these guys who make all these promises. I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to do that, and they get up there and they become turncoats. We're in a real precarious position here, having to depend upon extreme leftist Democrats and kind of a purple state Democrat in order to hold the line on these crazy policies.
Yeah. The policies are insane, but Manchin has been clear from the beginning he did not favor a lot of this stuff. And kudos to Kirsten Sinema too. She's pretty much stuck by her guns also. I said yesterday on the show, Gary, I don't think this bill is going to see the light of day in 2021. That may change next year, but right now I don't see that bill going anywhere. And I see Democratic frustration is probably going to continue to build because they're being thwarted at virtually every step of the way. Even that $1.2 trillion bill that passed, about half of it, was real infrastructure, and there's some bad stuff in there. But anyhow, that's going to go into law. But the thing about that bill, that money's going to be spent over a period of 8 years. So when you're talking about $125 billion a year in a $19 trillion economy, I don't think it's going to have that material effect. In a lot of cases, the people that did vote for that, there were some pretty significant projects in their districts, and some of those people came from moderate districts. So I don't fault them as much. I think we have a lot more bigger fish to fry in the Democrats than worrying about our own Republicans, because the way these tea leaves are trending, Gary, I think we're going to pick up a minimum of 40 seats in the House come 2022.
It didn't help the Democrats that John Kerry came out and says, "Hey, we're going to obliterate coal."
Oh God!
And I mean, that's all the state of West Virginia needs to hear for the upcoming election in 2022. But they keep shooting themselves in the foot, and I'm real thankful for that. But this is one of the most disastrous, on either the left or the right, Republican or Democrat, one of the most disastrous presidential years I've ever seen. And I've been around. I've seen more than you have. This is just the craziest stuff. These people are insane, but they're smart insane, because what they want to do, I think, is create more problems and then go back and say, well, government's now going to fix these problems, and we're going to enhance and empower the federal government even more with problems that we created in the first place.
I think that's a strategy, Gary, because you look at these bad policies and broken promises are basically what's leading Biden to a 38 to 42% approval rating. And if you didn't think that was bad enough, his esteemed vice president, who tried to crack jokes over in Paris, she's at 28% approval. I mean, that's hard to get to, 28% approval rating. But you're right. John Kerry came out and he basically said by 2030, we're not going to be using coal anymore. That is insane. We have a 100-year supply of coal. And you know what? The other thing that pompous, Kerry, what he says, by 2035, we will no longer be using carbons. We'll be carbon-free by 2035. That is just an outright lie to the far left-wing environmentalists hanging out in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, you know, there are a couple of things here that with John Kerry and this thing about coal and electrical vehicles. How in the world are you going to power all of these electric vehicles? That's the first thing. You're going to need a greater power source than we already have right now with all these electrical vehicles on the road. We're going to need coal. And who gets hurt the most in this transition from the internal combustion engine to electricity? And it's the middle and the lower classes.
Yep.
They hold on to cars usually longer, and their cars are usually less expensive. They're not going to be able to afford electrical vehicles. And of course, unless there's a mandate, but then again, the mandate then hurts the lowest common denominator on the economic scale.
Yeah, you're spot on that. And the thing about this, you've got the Biden administration right now asking oil companies to produce more. Well, wait a minute. You know, when Trump left office, the country was energy independent. It was exporting oil, exporting natural gas. We're still doing a little bit of exporting on natural gas, but you know, we're 2 million barrels producing less than we did then. And all they would have to do is ease up on regulations, allow drilling on federal lands, but they won't. I agree with you. This is a deliberate effort to force up gas prices so that there'll be more victory for the environmentals on the left. I mean, this is really insane policies. And these leftists running the government right now, I don't even put Biden in that category. He's just basically a caretaker. These leftists that are running the government are happy to do this. For them to watch middle income and lower income Americans feel pain at the pump, they couldn't care less.
Yeah, I was listening to Governor DeSantis, and he was talking about the OSHA ruling, coming out, I think in January, to finally push this mandate. And here you have, again, a really, I don't want to say unconstitutional, but a non-constitutional alphabet soup organization, 500 pages of regulations regarding this mask mandate that they've been pushing since August and hope to deliver by January. 500 pages on this particular issue. We are being run by bureaucrats, and I hope the American people see it coming. I think they do. There's been a lot. I mean, the past election, we saw a lot of things happen locally across the country, especially with these school boards, putting pressure on school boards and forcing a lot of these guys to retire. So I hope the American people just wise up with this and go to the polls and vote in 2022.
Well, the question is, how obviously we're going to make it to 2022, but what kind of shape are we going to be in when we get there? I mean, I've never seen. I'm in your camp too. This guy has done more damage to the economy in his first year in office than, he's worse than Jimmy Carter, even back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. The thing with Jimmy Carter, of course, which a lot of people don't know, that was over 40 years ago. Interest rates were like 15 and 16%. Right. It was just downright awful. So, that's one thing I think that's saving the economy right now is interest rates are pretty, very, very low. You got mortgage rates, I think they dropped below 3%. That was, when I remember my father-in-law telling me you could assume a loan back then. We were able, because we had some money, we could assume someone's loan, and that loan was 8.5%. And I remember my father-in-law saying, you'll never see any interest rates, lower than that. But we could do it because it was an assumable loan when most mortgage rates were up in 15, 16%. Yeah. So I think the Fed right now is keeping all of this going with extremely low interest rates.
Oh, there's no question about it. We've had economist Jerry Boyer on earlier this week, and he gave us a really detailed analysis about what's really going on with that. And they're going to have to keep these rates pretty low too. The amount of borrowing that the government's continuing to do, we're still running $1 trillion deficit. So I don't see this changing, Gary, anytime soon. It's just disappointing to me because this is a self-inflicted wound. We don't have to be paying $5 a gallon here in California, and what the national average is around $3.75 a gallon. They're starting to feel the pinch in the administration. They see the poll numbers, they see the disastrous election results, but you know what? They're not listening. The left-wingers running this White House are continuing to plow ahead with far-left policies. Again, for them, this is nothing about a complete redo of the American system, and they'll be damned if they're going to stop.
Yeah, look, inflation is essentially a tax increase.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens. The government is responsible for inflation. Inflation is the increase in the money supply, which then dilutes its value over time. So what we're seeing here is a tax increase. And again, the people who end up paying the most for this are the people that the Democrats claim they support and want their vote. So we're just going to have to wait and see if we can make it. We're a year out.
Yeah.
But the political fireworks are already being shot in the air, and I'm glad to see it.
Well, the thing that people are going to wake up to, if they continue increasing the money supply, buying these bonds the way they're doing it, and spending more money, the value of the dollar will go down, and the oil is priced in dollars. So it's going to cost more. It's a bad spiral, and they're not going to be able to get out of it. Yeah, let me move on to a couple other things here. No less, Gary, than the Washington Post has come out and said the Democrats have been lying about critical race theory. When they make statements that it's not being taught. For the Washington Post to call out Democrats as liars, hell did freeze over. I mean, it's sort of amazing headline that came out.
Yeah, and here's the thing: they deny critical race theory, but they won't oppose critical race theory. So wait a minute: if critical race theory isn't being taught, then why wouldn't you be
Exactly.
in opposition to it? It is being taught now. It's being redefined. It's been manipulated. The legal critical race theories idea they've been around a very, very long time. I think we've discussed this already.
Yeah.
This is racial separation. Kids are coming home from school and they're telling their parents, asking their parents, "Hey, am I the enemy? Am I evil because I'm white?"
Right.
This is a separationist movement, and it is being pushed on young people who don't really have a defense to it. They can't argue the case. It's, and again, I'm really thankful that a lot of these parents have finally come to their senses and putting pressure on these school boards across the country.
Yeah, thank goodness that's taking place. And again, we call it like it is. When the Washington Post calls out the Democrats, that's a news story in itself. Hey, let me shift a little bit here. What's your take on this Kyle Rittenhouse trial going on here? I mean, you've got an absolute dumbass like Hakeem Jeffries, one of the top leaders of the Democratic Party, coming out and saying, before a verdict's been rendered, this guy should be found guilty, locked up, throw away the key. Then you have that equally incompetent President Joe Biden calling him a white supremacist. You've got the judge admonishing, the prosecutor. Basically, Gary, I'm no expert on this trial. I haven't followed it as closely, but it looks to me like there's a good chance either this thing's going to be dismissed with prejudice, which means it's done, or at least a mistrial. Have you been keeping up with this? Any thoughts on this in this trial?
Yeah, I have a little bit. I think a couple of things are going on here. Again, I really do believe trials like this are used to frighten people from being active anywhere. I think the same thing was happened with January 6th. It's to say, hey, look, we are going to come after you. You do something untoward concerning our worldview. We're going to come after you we're going to jump on you with both feet. They never had a case from the beginning. Even some of the prosecution's own witnesses were actually ended up being defense witnesses in all of this. And you're right, the judge, he has been on the verge of saying, you're way out of line. I mean, to the point of even contempt. So, but for a sitting a congressman to make comments like this, and again, this is coming from people who continue to badger and fault the judicial system,
right.
And the incarceration rate among Black people, and then to say, hey, put this guy in prison. We know he's guilty. Throw away the key. Goes against everything these guys claim they believe in the last 20 or 30 years.
It almost seems like this is a political trial. It's not even a criminal trial. It almost seems like this guy's being made a political example, and the left is doing everything they can to convict this guy. And then that jackass LeBron James comes out and makes some stupid statement about it. I mean, here's a guy, I know people in Los Angeles that were Laker fans until he came out here and they just came and stomached the Lakers because he's such a jackass all the time. I mean, making just ridiculous comments about a kid, who got out a little bit over his skis, and now he compares him, calls him fake tears, and James is the king of the flop. So I mean, what the hell is this guy talking about?
I don't follow basketball that much, but I know he's out. And here's the thing: he really could be a great spokesman and activist for the black community.
Right.
And instead, he's got to make all of these political comments, and the problem is they don't help black people at all. They only again put them in a victim class, and that you're a victim all your life. And you need elitist black people, and you need white people, you need the Democrat Party to keep you in this particular position. It is time that some of these black leaders, people who have a voice, to stand up and say, there is a better way to do this, and I want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Well, it's interesting. And look, James is entitled to his opinion, but he just steps in it all the time. And, he's done a lot of good stuff for the community, but I didn't want to get off on him. Hey, let me talk about some really insane stuff here. We had the good fortune to have Eric Adams elected mayor of New York. I think he's a good guy. I'm optimistic that he can do some things to clean up New York City. Boy, word came out today. He had a meeting with the Black Lives Matter leader in New York City. Apparently they got in a shouting match. This BLM leader basically said, if you return to fighting crime in the city, then we will resort to burning buildings, rioting, looting, and we're going to cause bloodshed in New York City. All because Eric Adams, who's a black mayor, second black mayor elected in New York, former police officer, said, I am going to fight crime in this city, and we are going to restore law and order. Good for Eric Adams. He's basically taken a moderate position, a practical position if you talk to most people. Hell, that's why he got elected to, mayor. And yet, for the insinuation of saying we are going to fight crime in New York City, the BLM leader goes bananas. Explain that one to me, Gary.
Again, the people who are hurt most by this are the people that Black Lives Matter people claim they really want to help. I mean, most of these neighborhoods, maybe black-dominated neighborhoods, they want to see a police presence there.
Absolutely.
And these police officers are, black themselves. This isn't white against black.
Right, it's not a racial issue at all, but BLM is making it out to be because everybody on the left sees everything through skin color, and people who are in the middle or on the right just want law and order.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they want to be able to walk down the street and not have to be, molested. Hear what happened in Los Angeles with the police department in Los Angeles say, look, crime is rising. What's happening is people are following, people home, and then they're robbing them when they get in the home. Don't resist. Just into the most audacious thing at the end of the comment was, be a good citizen. Essentially, let them rob you.
Right.
And this is what it's come to with all of this defacement of the police presence in many of these major cities.
Well, you have to look no further. I'll give you New York an example, two examples. New York, just this morning, 5:30 in the morning, 62-year-old man is walking around Midtown Manhattan. They have the scalloping all over because they're doing a lot of construction there. And if you recall, Midtown, perceived to be a safe area, nice part of town, 7 young African-American kids assaulted this guy this morning, hit him with a baseball bat, stabbed him, left him to die. But fortunately, he was rescued, taken to a hospital in critical condition. Now he's stabilized, but for no apparent reason. I mean, just attacking someone, assaulting him. They didn't even know the guy, and then at least they got pictures of some of these young kids. I mean, Gary, no, who the hell wants to live in an environment like that? And then in Los Angeles, to echo on what you're saying, there's a recall effort out here. George Gascon, the guy who's the district attorney out in Los Angeles, he was supported by George Soros. He just had a case where a guy was convicted of murder, from a couple of years ago, young guy, sentenced to 50 years in jail, and now Gascon is letting him out after 6. People are outraged, and not only that, they didn't even notify the victim's family that they're going to let this guy out. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And unfortunately, a lot of the people in the media are ignoring these cases. You and I are reading. They're really not alternative news sources, but they're news sources out there that don't get as much play as some of the the major networks. And most of the major networks, of course, are mostly watched by older folk. So it's just going to be interesting. I've been watching all this, and almost everywhere I turn, I'm beginning to see people taking a stand. I was watching something from Melbourne, Australia. I mean, which has the most
aggressive lockdown policy.
Yeah, lockdown in the whole world. Yeah. There were tens of thousands of people in the streets calling for the mayor of the town to resign. I mean, it was just, this place was mobbed with people. And a young woman had written a song about being Australian, and people were singing this thing. No police presence, no violence, people from all different backgrounds there. This is a good thing. And if we ended up, this is why I think the January 6th thing was such a fiasco, is that people don't understand the best way to present your case is simply go out there, let your voice be heard, no rabble rousing, certainly no breaking down barriers and going to the Capitol. It was a stupid thing to do. The people in Melbourne, Australia showed how it's done. Gets a lot of attention. You can't fault them. I always have a little saying I've developed over the years: don't let anyone reject your position other than the position itself. Don't give them any reason to reject your position other than the position itself.
Yeah, that's good. That's good sage advice, Gary. Speaking of similar type situation, the fake dossier, that instrument that Hillary Clinton campaign originated and tried to tie around Trump unsuccessfully, that fake dossier was used by no less than Adam Schiff a dozen times. Now that it's been completely debunked and people are being indicted for lying, the silence of Adam Schiff, it's pleasant. The fact that lying Schiff, and that's who he is, he knew from the beginning this thing was a hoax, and yet he perpetrated a lie for years.
Yeah, of course, he knows he can get away with this. Nothing's going to happen to the guy. He'll get away with it. The media really aren't covering this. They covered. I think someone won a Pulitzer Prize on the reporting on this.
They did.
That just goes to show you how bad off this was. But again, we'll just have to see how the media covers it. Maybe as Durham gets closer and closer and closer to Hillary, maybe we'll see some fireworks.
Well, the interesting thing about this Durham thing, it's taken a while, but this guy does not seem to be intimidated by anything. He's following what happened, and he's exposing the fraud that's the Democratic Party. And, all this stuff is starting to come out. So, kudos to Durham. We'll see where it all plays out.
Anybody who has a mustache like that, you better watch out.
You got to be careful. Hey, what do you think about this stuff, again, with the Justice Department paying criminals, people who committed a crime, to coming across the border, and now they're all, oh my God, they separated the kids, we got to pay them. That's horseshit. They broke the law coming across, and now the Biden administration, Justice Department, wants to settle a lawsuit. But, the lawsuit got brought by the ACLU and a bunch of liberal Democratic attorneys, and so the Justice Department's trying to settle this thing now, Gary? That's going to be outrageous. You want to take a country that's already ticked off at a president, 38% approval, and pay illegal immigrants who came across money for child separation when they broke the law? What part of insanity is this?
$450,000. And look, one of the reasons, people don't hear the whole story, the whole context of this. One of the reasons a lot of this separation took place is that there are reports of child trafficking. They're trying to determine whether or not these children really belong to these adults as parents. And so they were most of them were reunited because they made that proof. there's nothing untoward, took place with all this. But, once that message gets down into Central and South America and say, hey, you know what? Let's get some kids. Let's go up to the border. Let's have them separate us, and maybe we'll make some money.
Well,
you end up going to fight in these unconstitutional wars. You come back, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and you're damaged. You've
right.
been injured, and so forth. You're not getting $450,000 for something like that.
Well, the crazy thing about it is they broke the law. I mean, who the hell cares if they were separated? They broke the law. And most of those parents intended to come up here with their kids. They didn't give a damn they got separated from. That's the biggest Democratic hoax. And the fact is, they broke the law. Okay, you break the law, you shouldn't be entitled to anything. They ought to be paying a fine instead of receiving compensation from these damn liberal Democratic, lawyers. I mean, this is crazy stuff. So, got a couple minutes left. Let me ask you this, Gary. All kind of news breaking this week. I haven't seen one good thing about the Biden administration. Harris makes a joke of herself over in France.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, where do they
I heard
go?
she started speaking with she had a French accent.
Oh, some stupid thing. I mean, she's an embarrassment every time she goes out in public. That's why she's got a 28% approval rating. My question to you, Gary, after just really a disastrous first 10 months in office, where does Biden go from here? I mean, I asked a lot of guests, you think he's going to tack to the center? And every one of them said no, he's going to continue moving left.
He can't do it. He knows he can't do it. And I don't know what policies he would actually promote that would be closer to the center. Anyway, what is there? If he decided to open up some of these pipelines again, I'd love to see that. I don't think he's going to do it.
Right.
I think he was supposed to shut down another one from out of Michigan.
Yeah.
So this is going to go on and on. He is trapped. I'm not sure he understands that he is trapped. We don't know what kind of advice he is getting. Presidents in and of themselves are in political bubbles anyway, but I think he's even in a smaller bubble. Yeah. And his advisors, I don't know what Jill Biden thinks of any of this. But this is just think about that. 1 year, not even a year as president of the United States with an approval rating as low as, and I bet it's even lower. If people really knew what was going on, it would even be lower. And I think as they go to the gas station and get, pump some gas and start seeing $4.50 a gallon, what's his name? Who was the guy that said, was it Carville? It's the economy, stupid.
Right. Yeah.
That when people are hit in the pocketbook, your children and your pocketbook, those two things, people will stand up and take notice.
Yeah, I concur with you. It's been a bad week for the president. His cognitive abilities they seem to be deteriorating. I hate saying that because he's our president, but man, he gets up there and the guy just looks like he's incoherent. Anyhow. The positive news, Gary, is the 2022 midterms will be here sometime next year. How do you see it right now? We just had a really good Tuesday a week ago. How do you see things heading into the rest of the year and into 2022?
Well, I'm optimistic, but I know one thing about the Democrats. They keep trudging along. Any obstacle in their way, they will try to figure out a way around it.
Yeah.
There may be some cheating, of course, that takes place. But it's going to be very, very difficult for them. I think they were shocked in Virginia. They were shocked a little bit in New Jersey that race there was as close as it was. And then that truck driver who beat a very powerful New York. Was it New York?
No, New Jersey. The head of the New Jersey Senate.
That had to be really shocking. And then some of these school boards being attacked. And I think I read also a number of these school boards have dropped out of that national organization. So they're starting to feel the heat as well. And that's what we need to do. We need to continue to put pressure on them from all sides until we start seeing them crack a bit.
Yeah, I concur with you. Well, I hope things get better. I sense that we're going to have some higher inflation for a while. I don't know about gas prices. I think they're going to keep heading up. And boy, I tell you go into the holidays, high gas prices, supply chain disruptions. I'm not sure Biden's hit the bottom point of his approval rating, but we'll see. Anyhow, Gary, thanks for joining me again today. Great having you on as always. Folks, thanks for viewing this week and listening on our podcast. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everything's going great. So, guys, have a great weekend. Stay safe, and we will see you on Monday, and we'll stay on top of it for you.